I'm Susan Wells-Grimaldo. I'm with Strategy Analytics, and I'm an industry analyst looking globally at trends across the wireless ecosystem, in particular the strategies of service providers. So I'd like to welcome you today to our session as this virtual piece of the Mobile World Congress 2020. And we're going to be talking today about AI, which is an exciting topic. So our topic in specific is the intelligent automation at scale and implementing and exploring the operator AI implementation journey. To talk a bit more about where we are today and where we're heading with AI. It's become a bit of an umbrella term, and it's certainly automation and AI are a very important part of all the changes happening on the network. So I've got two panelists here today to help dig into this question. I have Eleanor Bergman, who's with Ericsson and directs AI group there, and I have Eugenia Jordan, who's a VP of Marketing at Parallel Wireless. So I'm going to start off and have Eugenia introduce herself a bit and tell where she fits into the AI world. We've seen, a lot of people are probably familiar with Parallel Wireless for its role in Open RAN. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you fit with why you're here talking about AI with us today?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this invitation. We're very excited to support Mobile World Congress in a virtual environment. AI is a part of the evolution of mobile networks. What mobile networks are going through today is what enterprise markets went through in 2000s. And we see that in how operators deploy networks or maintain their networks. Unless they change the ways, unless they bring AI, DevOps with continuous integration, continuous software development, and automation, the cost of deployment of networks cannot be reduced. We see our operator partners globally embracing this trend, embracing automation, bringing new innovations like AI and DevOps, including virtualization of their networks, to the table. And recently, Parallel Wireless made a very important announcement. We partnered with a software company, Robin Systems, and they're leading in network automation. So what we're going to bring with that partnership to the service provider world is automation, not just in the RAN, but across the RAN core data center. And by implementing automation as a layer across from the RAN into the core, the networks will become simple, automated, and cost-effective to deploy and maintain.
Great, thank you. It sounds like a lot of really key developments and reasons to be looking at this end-to-end automation and tying the pieces together. That's really helpful to hear that perspective. And Elena, let's hear a little bit about you, because you lead a big team of AI researchers there at Ericsson. How do you fit in with the other teams, and what are some of the areas that you're focusing on this year in particular with your AI? How do you decide your direction and figure out where it fits with all the different parts of what Ericsson does in its solutions?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that I fit right at the beginning of AI journey, or because I'm leading this research organization and we are actually looking 3 to 5 years ahead, or maybe sometimes 10 years ahead. And it's a sliding window. If there is a technology that we're working on today, then, well, in 3 or 5 years, it's going to be productified as part of the portfolio. And I'm part of the big telecom infrastructure vendor, so we are actually incorporating AI solutions everywhere across the portfolio in all our products and services. And I think what's interesting for the operator journey of deploying AI is that it's important to have a systemic perspective of AI. Because AI is not just putting like on top of something. It's not like you can design an architecture of something and then later on just scan the data streams and put AI on top. You need to integrate it as a solution within each product and within the whole solution essentially, so that all the algorithms are interplaying in a good way. And because algorithms can actually have different strategies, and these strategies can compensate for each other, but the whole system needs to follow some kind of objective function.
That's really interesting. I had never really thought about AI having strategies, but that makes a lot of sense, and making sure that they work together, and you just start from the very beginning of implementing something, thinking about where the AI fits in, not added as an afterthought. So it's a very key point. maybe have you, Elena, talk a little bit, you know, where, when you talk about operators, as you said, it's across your whole portfolio. So where is AI actually implemented, and what teams need to be involved when you're thinking about AI at an operator?
So of course, when you, it's in all stages of the life cycle of the network, I would say. So we start with the maybe design of the network, the deployment, the rollout, and then you come to the operations, day-to-day operations. So it is in the design phase where to put the nodes, for example, where to put the sites. Then you optimize the coverage of your network. You want to have a big infrastructure utilization, for example, so that you can get as much coverage as from the same infrastructure that you have deployed. Then maybe you want to optimize the energy consumption of your network, and that's also another objective function that you have on your network. Then you have the services, of course, and then you want to optimize the customer experience, the consumer experience, and the experience of the enterprises that run on top of your network, and that has a lot of AI components and automation components in it. So, for example, all the site visits, all the truck rolls need to be optimized. We need to go from reactive when we are reacting on some kind of failure to being proactive and predict and prevent the failures remotely. And that is also optimizing the energy consumption in the network. And then, of course, for example, reacting on enterprise needs. If there is for example, a connected factory that's running on top of an operator network, and that factory is deploying different types of connected devices, for example, different types of connected robots, they have different quality of service characteristics. Then we maybe need to allocate the slices of the network in a very intelligent way. And then anything that happens on the enterprise layer, we need to be able to react in the network as well. And that needs to happen in real time. And that's the tricky part, because now currently all the requirements on the network, they actually need to happen in real time. That means that these decisions need to be made in real time. And the decisions are made on very big data collections and knowledge bases. So we need to have efficient algorithms. That means that we need to have efficient algorithms to take these decisions to kind of maybe reconfigure the network at real time.
Right. And Eugenia, when you think about, you know, you're doing a lot of marketing of solutions here, how do you talk to operators about why they need AI, what the benefits are, the sort of KPIs, and how they think about that return on investment in building more AI and automation into their network?
Absolutely. When we look at AI, there are two stages. There is stage number one, which is a development stage. When you collect the data, you analyze your networks, you analyze your KPIs. And then there's a second stage when you build and consume AI. So it is very important to understand what stage the customer is at, because as AI development and implementation evolves, so do the needs of our customers. And it is important that we don't come from the features perspective. We come from the benefit. As Elena was describing, truck rolls, network optimization, drive testing, they cost a lot of money in CapEx and OpEx to mobile operators. So if we come to the table with our optimization and automated solution to reduce that cost, that our customers will be more open to hear it. We don't come from the feature standpoint. We sit down with them, we discuss what their challenges are, and we figure out what the best solutions are to reduce their cost and provide the best experience to their customers.
Great. And maybe, Eugenia, you could talk a little bit, and then I'll have Elena talk a bit. Where are operators today on this journey? Are you seeing a lot of different range of where everyone is and what they're implementing? Are they starting with a particular portion of what they're automating, doing it more at trial scale? Are we starting to scale into a bigger picture here? Because we've talked about a lot of touch points in network. So anything you can talk about where you see the implementations today and heading this year?
Absolutely. It is a really good question. And Elena brought it up because I think right now we're in the beginning of the journey. And what is absolutely amazing that this is a new way of doing things. There's an ecosystem of being built. It's not just, vendors doing their own thing and operators doing their own thing. Big vendors like Ericsson and budding vendors like innovators like Parallel Wireless, mobile operators, hardware partners, software partners, we're all in it together, because it is important that we realize the vision by connecting and learning from each other. So I'm in complete agreement with Elena. When in very early stage, we need to assess, we need to figure out what needs to be done. And productization, as she said, probably is 3 to 5 years from now, which is going to be key for 5G. Because the way the networks were built for 2G, 3G cannot be sustained. So it is perfect timing for AI to blossom when 5G deployments will be blossoming as well.
Okay, Elena, would you like to comment a bit where you see, obviously you work with a lot of operators and teams globally, so where do you see things in terms of current implementation and where we're heading this year?
Well, I think it's happening all over. I think, well, of course, there are different levels of maturity that I've seen, but I mean, at heart of the network, it's very important to optimize the resources efficiently, of course. So this is where I've seen a lot of momentum happening. And then you can look, of course, at very futuristic use cases, such as like if you would take automation to its extreme, if we would think of, okay, let's automate the rollout, let's automate the configuration, let's automate the thousands of parameters of the network that we are rolling out. That's a very interesting task for the operators. Then, of course, the next thing, how can we automate the design? How do we design new antennas using AI? That's a very, very interesting topic. And then a very futuristic thing, for example, if you want to automate the field services, how do you automate operations in the field? Of course, we do have self-driving cars. Of course, we have a lot of robotic developments. We have drones. So there is surveillance through drones. There may be even reparations that are being done remotely through different types of robotics. So I think we start at core of it. We start at like the given things that we need at heart of the network, right? And then we need to spread these automations and AI in different parts of the network, maybe where it's not as given now, but innovation will push it there.
Okay, great. And Ellen, what about interoperability? Is there really such a thing as interoperability in AI, so you can have a multi-vendor environment and more of an open environment, or how does that work? Does it need to be really built into each particular piece?
Yeah, sure. So Ericsson is actually running managed services on many different vendors. So we are not only managing our own equipment, we are also managing equipment from many other vendors. And if we couldn't have interoperability in our networks, then we couldn't have managed it efficiently. But what happens in essence is that one can read out a lot of data. And then one thing is that we can do, for example, some kind of mapping or algorithmic translation of this data so that we can understand the concepts. And then you want to kind of reach this thing that we call semantic interoperability, that we can link the terms. So maybe different data looks differently that one read from different vendors, but then in the end, you will be able to link the concepts and translate and see that two different things can mean something. Then if I answer from a different angle, there is a lot of standardization happening on AI as well, and zero-touch network management, which is very exciting. And then, of course, we have an open source community that's very active and setting de facto standards. So it is the interoperability. I mean, I know that AI is such a field that there are so many things happening, but then I think de facto standards are about to emerge. And quite often, data and knowledge are described in such a fashion in communities that it's easy to link between.
And Eugenia, maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because obviously you work in a very sort of looking at open and pushing that environment. So how do you see that in terms, and you talked earlier about needing to collaborate as we go on this journey. Maybe you could talk just briefly about that.
Absolutely. Excellent, excellent point. And it is very encouraging that Ericsson is looking into interoperability when they're building this technology, new technology as AI. The concern is around the data, right? Because you cannot build a system that can benefit mobile operators unless you collect that data from every single system on the network, from all of the vendors that creating RAM, all of the vendors in the data center. And it is important because if one component is missing, that AI system that the mobile operators build is not going to be efficient, and it's not going to meet the objectives. So it is important that the ecosystem is built. Vendors open up their interfaces, that vendors open up their APIs, but also other ecosystem players need to be involved. We all hear terms data lakes, right? So that needs to be part of the AI, because unless you have sources of data coming from those data lakes, external data lakes, governments, regulators, Google, Maps, and so on, AI is not going to help real time.
Right, and that's a really good point. And Elena, I'd love to hear a little bit, when you talk about training AI systems, how do you look at, can you pull anonymized data from multiple operators around the globe to help improve your systems, and how does that work?
So first of all, I mean, we do have a lot of internal management data. So when you manage networks, then you create a lot of data that is describing how we manage the network, and that's kind of, this is something that's that we own simply as a vendor. So, and it's huge. So on that one can do a lot of training. Then of course there are different types of anonymizing, and then also doing learning close to the data without disclosing anything. So for example, we are looking at federated learning, when you do the processing very close to the data and never send any data anywhere. So the concept of federating learning is that you only send the weights of the model. So absolutely, there is a lot of learning happening in the networks. And then of course, before we deploy any algorithms, I think privacy and security and trustworthiness aspects go as a sanity check. So they have to be there, they have to be in place.
Great, and hopefully we'll have an audience listening in that come from many different walks of life and are really looking into digging more into AI this year. What would you both really encourage people to try to tackle this year as they think about their journey on automation and AI, whether it's a vendor or an operator or someone else in the ecosystem? And maybe keep it brief, and we'll get a few key points here. So maybe Eugenia, have you go first on that. What would you really encourage people to tackle this year?
Absolutely. As an open vendor, I would like to encourage everyone from vendors to mobile operators to regulators to be open to innovation, open to change, open to disruption. Because once we become open and we look with different eyes, we can make those changes. We can bring coverage across the globe. And by bringing coverage, we can make people's lives better.
Great. And Elena, from your perspective?
So I would say AI is such a thing. We cannot be efficient with it. We cannot treat it like putting AI on top, and it would be like putting lipstick on a pig. It has to emerge from the center, from the heart of the system. The design needs to be AI ready and data driven. So when systems get designed, they need to be designed in such a way so that we can easily deploy AI algorithms. And I think digitalization has been a popular term some years ago. Now AI is the next popular term. But digitalization is such an important thing. It's such an important prerequisite before we can start using AI very effectively. So building that base, preparing for using AI effectively, that's very important. And that base needs to be so flexible and dynamic so that we can easily play around and actually innovate on top of that platform.
Thank you. That's a really great place you've both raised today in terms of how to think about AI and automation, and building the process as a journey very much from the beginning and thinking about how it's going to integrate into the design, being ready for that with the digitalization and the data sets that we're thinking about collecting, what problems we're trying to solve here. And it's very pervasive, and I think that's great to see many different touch points and areas you're looking at utilizing this as a component of building the networks of the future, delivering better performance to the customers, getting better coverage, more cost effective, and having some impact perhaps on the environment as well in terms of how you can be more efficient with your system. So I really want to thank you both for joining us today, and thank everyone for listening to our virtual session, since unfortunately we weren't able to meet face-to-face in Barcelona. But it's been really good to hear this, and I'm looking forward to seeing where the conversation goes this year on AI and automation. So thank you very much, and thanks to the GSMA for hosting us for this discussion.